their rights. Soon after the Civil War was over, the Union was put back together. All of the states come back together and they make one country once again. America made the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. The 13th Amendment banned slavery. The 14th promised equal protection for all people, no matter what the states would do. The 15th Amendment gave all men the right to vote. And it seemed that America really had been reborn there for a second. In the years following the Civil War, African Americans were elected into Congress in the South. Even the people themselves in the government were starting to look different. Their skin looked different from the rest of the people. We are truly being transformed. Hooray! Progress! That is until the southern states decided that they may have lost the war, but they were not going to give up on their beliefs and culture so easily. Soon, what would later be called Jim Crow laws would be passed throughout the South. The 14th Amendment was supposed to protect all of these African Americans from the states doing this very thing. And about 10 to 15 years after the Civil War, however, the federal government, which would have presidents elected in later years with different beliefs than Lincoln, some of which were downright racist. These presidents would turn a blind eye to what the southern states were doing. These things include discrimination, segregation, and lynching. The Supreme Court ruled that the 14th Amendment kept the states from discriminating against African Americans, but not people. I want you folks to notice here. The Supreme Court essentially said, so long as you are not a state, a person, as long as you person are not a state, you can treat anyone as you want. All right, let's take a look at the 14th Amendment here. It reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So here's the thing. Did Lincoln's transformation really happen? Did America really go through a rebirth? Doesn't really seem like it has did. And the sad thing is, those African American congressmen that were voted in right after the Civil War, well, that stopped pretty quickly. People in the South pretty much just did whatever they could to keep African Americans out of the government, because if African Americans were in the government, then they would never allow any of the laws that the white people were passing and allowing actions to be done to all of these people, actions that are totally illegal, but they would just turn a blind eye. I mentioned lynchings earlier. Now, often with lynchings, what you have in your head is perhaps some sort of rope that is used to hang someone, right? A lynching is actually just people deciding that someone is guilty before there's even a trial, and they just go ahead and kill them. And this has happened to white people as well as to African Americans. It's often a foreigner, someone that's just different, or it is a real criminal that people knew pretty much for sure that they'd done something, and instead of going through a trial, they just wanted to go ahead and kill them. That stuff actually happened. But in particular, lynchings happened to African Americans. And the crazy thing is, it wasn't just in the South. It was all over. And that's alarming, particularly because this whole Civil War thing was a fight between the South and the North. And the North decided that they were going to be against slavery, but that doesn't also mean that they're going to treat people as equals. I guess that doesn't mean that they are going to obey our Constitution. They're not going to obey our amendments that talk about due process. Due process is simply just a person making their way through the justice system in a fair way. As in, you get arrested, you get told your Miranda rights, you have a fair trial, you are either told you are innocent or guilty, and they give you a fair sentence if you are guilty of that crime. That's ideal due process. Well, notice here how lynchings just take that out. There is no due process. And not only that, but they're taking away someone's life and their liberty. Lincoln had this hope, this dream that America would be reborn. But really, those amendments didn't really help African Americans. And again, it's really just because the following presidents after Ulysses S. Grant, they all just sort of accepted Jim Crow. And the people of the South were very glad to have everything go back to normal. They knew that they couldn't have slavery anymore, but they also knew that they could still control African Americans. They could still only let them do certain jobs, usually the worst jobs, the jobs that often didn't pay well. They would not sell them houses near nice neighborhoods, and the white people would just sort of shove the black folks into areas that aren't so nice. Basically, they tried to make life really, really hard for African Americans. So ultimately, Lincoln's dream didn't really come true. Not at least for another 100 years until another man's dream.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream.
He and many, many, many others, they would have to keep on fighting for all of these rights that were supposed to be given from the start. The problem is that often people think that if you pass a law, then it's fixed. That clearly did not work with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Could we say that America has finished its rebirth? Is that true today? Will it ever be true? It's true that America has always at least aspired for those. We've at least written it down several times and said we want things to be equal. In the years following the Civil War, we were going to see a whole lot of conflicts on the road to the civil rights movement. We will get to that later.